I now lift my pen to sign this Americans with Disability Act and say, let the shameful wall of exclusion finally come tumbling down. God bless you all.
For 25 years, the Americans with Disabilities Act has removed barriers and empowered people. At his office in Houston, President George H.W. Bush recently sat down with Tom Ridge, chairman of the National Organization on Disability and America's first Secretary of Homeland Security, for a rare and intimate conversation on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the ADA.
Mr. President, you have no idea what a great pleasure it is for me to have the chance to have this conversation with you. You have been so kind to the National Organization on Disability to serve as our honorary chairman for 25 years, and I've been privileged to follow your lead. I've been chairman of the board for 10 years, so I got 15 more years to go, and I'll still be catching up with you, Mr. President. But I'd really like to take you back to the South Lawn, White House, July of 1990.
My golly.
You signed what many people have said was the most extensive piece of civil rights legislation in America's history. And I looked at your remarks that day, Mr. President, and you said, if I might quote, "This act is powerful in its simplicity.
It will ensure that people with disabilities are given the basic guarantees for which they have worked so long and so hard: independence, freedom of choice, control of their lives, the opportunity to blend fully and equally into the rich mosaic of the American mainstream.
25 years ago, you've had many achievements in your life. Do you have a sense of how important this was to you personally? Because it's been very important to Americans since that time.
Well, I believe we were doing the right thing back then, and I think it's true. It still is. So it's something I can take pride in.
Well, that legislation talked about non-discrimination, accessibility, inclusion, and it was sweeping in its impact. Now there's one more barrier, and I presume you agree with me that the next and perhaps the most important barrier is to see that people with disabilities get a chance to go to work.
You just can't take the word disability and disqualify it.
And I also want to say a special word to our friends in the business community. You have in your hands the key to the success of this act, for you can unlock a splendid resource of untapped human potential that, when freed, will enrich us all.
Getting people to work is something that we've discovered, Mr. President, when we finally created a culture of acceptability, that these employers learn that the men and women with disabilities sometimes are the best and most effective employees they have. That probably doesn't surprise you, does it?
No, but just so they get a chance. That's the main thing.
Again, as you take a look at that scene 25 years ago, and you reflect on how important it was at that time, you had a lot of people involved in promoting it. Wasn't it wonderful that you had Republicans and Democrats laying out that platform for people with disabilities?
Very important. If it had been just one party kind of thing, you know, it would have been less effective. So, no, I think it's very important. It's something I'm very proud of, perhaps proudest of when I was president.
Well, you know, Mr. President, I know you are an optimist by nature. I know you're an optimist by nature. Anybody that flew 58 combat missions and who thought it was a good time jumping out of airplanes is obviously optimistic. But do you see a time when Americans will just accept disability as just a natural human condition?
You know, I think people have a wrong impression sometimes. Say this is a disability, and they think, well, that person with disability is less able to do this job. That's not fair, that's not right.
I guess at the end of the day, there are 40 to 50 million Americans who have far more opportunity today than they would have had without your taking the leadership on that issue. And on behalf of the National Organization on Disability and as a great friend, you've been an inspiration to a lot of us, Mr. President. I'd like to think that I take a bit of your leadership and try to extend your commitment to people with disabilities within this organization. And so we thank you for your leadership and your friendship. Thanks,
welcome.
Mr. President.
You're a good man.
Thank you, sir.
And then the organizations. So many dedicated organizations for people with disabilities who gave their time and their strength. And perhaps most of all, everyone out there and others across the breadth of this nation are 43 million Americans with disabilities. You have made this happen. All of you have made this happen.